Don't eat the cake. I'm sure recently you've seen these shorts on YouTube, right? The one where a scientist turns horror characters into cute anime girls. Well, what if I told you there's more than meets the eye here, fellas? Because these shorts have a lore! And I'm gonna explain it to you. Because this isn't just some cutesy scientist trying to protect herself from otherworldly abominations. No. This girl is a tyrannical mastermind amassing a brainwashed anime harem of addicted monsters to take over the universe as we know it. And they're more than willing to destroy anyone who gets in their way of universal domination. Don't believe me? Then let me show you. But trust me when I say the cake really is a lie. So what's this lore I've been talking about? After all, if you've only seen one or two of these shorts, you might just think they don't have a lore. They're just turning monsters into anime girls. So let's go over the timeline in order, and I'll go over all the key details and point things out as we go along. For a basic premise though, the series follows a scientist named Pochi and their robot who I'll call WaifuBot. Pochi's main gimmick is using this reddish pink substance to, again, turn monsters into anime girls. Canonically it's called Pixie Tinkle, but for ease of writing, I'll be calling this substance Animexia because I don't want to be forced to say Pixie Tinkle every few seconds. On the official community post, we can get some more lore on this substance. However, there's some language of note I'd like to point out. Its purpose is to forcibly reorganize the target's genome, eliminating aggressive tendencies and transforming a threatening appearance into an acceptable one. So with that important note out of the way, let's get on to the episodes. Our first episode starts with the character Seek from Roblox Doors. Pochi, upon being presented with Seek, excitedly presses a button. Although Seek appears worried and tries to block it, they are violently beamed with a ray of Animexia, to which they become anime. In the short, they dance to the song Internet Yamaro from the game Needy Streamer Overload. Despite this though, they appear very uncomfortable the entire time, almost as if they're being forced to dance. Just look at their face here. That does not look like somebody willingly wanting to do this. Next episode, we get Screech from the same franchise, to which they are boinked at the crucifix, smushed, flailed around at high speed, and then beamed with a brand new version of the beam. This turns Screech into an anime girl as well, albeit much happier than the last experiment, dancing to Tokyo from Lady Q. Despite this, they are quickly imprisoned with these white chains. Now, here's where we enter the Amanda the Adventure arc. Amanda is seen trying to kill Wooly, where we get our first appearance of WaifuBot. The thing about this is that they clearly entered Amanda's world, being the first showcase that they can and will travel to different universes, which will be confirmed far more bluntly later on. Amanda is sucked into a TV by WaifuBot, but while Wooly tries to thank Pochi, he's injected with Animexia, which turns him into an anime girl. He dances to Beep Beep I'm a Sheep, at first confusedly, before fully embracing it. Again, note how the creator explicitly keeps making the character uncomfortable or confused at first before getting into it. Next we have roughly the same thing, however it establishes something important for later. Wooly is being attacked by Monster Amanda this time, but upon them both being blasted with Animexia, Amanda returns to their normal human form, showing that normal humans aren't affected, and Animexia would just return them to normal. So if Pochi blasted themselves, nothing should happen. Keep this in mind as we keep going. Next episode, Pochi is nowhere to be seen as Amanda and Wooly somehow have access to Animexia of their own, which they excitedly use on Blabot, to which they too have an initial dislike response. This is hammered in again in this short where Amanda and Wooly again have access to the Animexia, where they excitedly dope themselves up straight into their brain. We switch gears in the next episode, whereas Pochi reappears, drinking a Grimace shake to lure Grimace into a trap, allowing WaifuBot to capture him and force feed them Animexia. The song in the background immediately says, "You can't go back."
You can't go back.
Whereas they then become an anime girl. They are naturally shocked, likely horrified given the reactions of previous patients, to which she sits down with tired eyes and drinks one of the shakes, likely in hopes of turning back to normal. We switch back to the Doors arc for the figure. Again, Pochi tricks them using a bell this time, only to shoot them and make them anime. The figure still seems rather feral, however the other Doors characters, still animified, wave them over. Something interesting to note is that Seek, who was uncomfortable and clearly didn't like being an anime girl through the entirety of their episode, now seems happy, almost giddy. At the end of the short, the figure still seems either feral or upset looking. However, Seek seems to be talking with them, and Screech is excitedly jumping around them. What does this mean? Conversion! As Pochi slides into frame, they're watching over them and gives a thumbs up, not to them, but to the camera. Another job well done, I imagine. We now move on to the Rainbow Friends arc, which is going to be a pretty long one, spanning over 9 shorts. This is where the lore really starts. We start with Pochi emerging from a box to shoot Blue. Despite having been ready to attack a moment ago, though, being shot with Animexia causes them to calmly dance instantly, as Pochi gives us the exact same thumbs up as when the figure was converted. Next is Orange. This is the part I should mention a pattern which you may or may not have noticed. You see, a common theme with each of these is that Pochi rarely ever is in danger or finding themselves having to protect themselves. They're putting themselves purposefully in danger. They're seeking each of these characters out to be attacked, so that they can then be converted to anime and experimented on. Pochi stands on Orange's orange spikes and holds out a bag of treats. Orange then darts out to launch at Pochi, to which Waifubot jumps out and punts Orange into the ceiling. They are then converted into anime, to which, although they still hold aspects of their destructive personality, still are shown to be clearly okay with being an anime girl, and hold no hostility towards Pochi, despite having some only moments ago. Something interesting which seems to be a major part of Animexia is that the more characters injured, the less time they have before fully embracing the anime. Just look at how Screech had to be crushed, flailed around, and then when converted had no resistance to it. But when other characters like Blabot or Seek are converted, they resist, at least initially. They are breaking down their will before converting them. This can be seen again here with Orange when they are kicked hard into the ceiling before being converted, causing them to have no resistance. Next up is Green, minding their own business. Upon being antagonized by Waifubot, he then attacks, which causes Pochi to inject them with Animexia too. They are confused and disoriented until they are given a blue plushie and fully embrace the anime. Purple is in the vents, and when Mochi approaches, Purple grabs at their ankle. Waifubot comes in clutch, dragging them out of the vent to get injected. They seem pretty happy at first, but shortly afterwards are shown as sad in the very same vents, until one of Pochi's converted go to cheer them back up. Yellow finds an odd egg. Upon seeing it suddenly break open with a weirdo scientist inside, Yellow naturally freaks out and attacks, only to get animated. This is another case in which, because they weren't injured, they don't seem too happy about becoming an anime girl. It's Cyan's turn next. They follow Ladybug, find a much bigger Ladybug and gets excited, only for it to just be a lady, and boom. Anime. More of the same, but Yellow is wearing a Ladybug outfit, which they seem confused and embarrassed by, and is used to have Cyan lunge hug Yellow, likely so Cyan can start seeing being an anime girl as a good thing. After all, if Yellow was willingly wearing this, why would they be confused? And so we enter the three-part finale. In the first part, Pochi and Waifubot break in, even being given the whole dark silhouette but glowing eyes thing that you'd see in wild animals. Red's been watching though, and he's ready for them with a potion of his own, but first, he flips a lever and brings out Pink and Brown. Waifubot quickly gets to work, tying up Pink and letting them get animified. Although putting up a fight, Brown quickly falls too. Red injects themselves with a purple substance in desperation, which I will call Demexia. This leaves Pochi and Waifubot worried but on edge. Before we continue though, I want to show the community post that was posted at this time. We learned that Dr. Red was developing a substance that would enhance the physical abilities of living creatures to counter the Pochi Science laboratory. We infiltrate his lab to capture him and secure his secret substance. Notice how they said they learned it. They didn't know Red was doing anything until they arrived and started converting his friends, which means Red may not have been evilly scheming this entire time. Red has monitors. He saw what was happening to his friends and was making countermeasures. Not only that, but it was made to counter Pochi Lab, and apparently enhance the physical abilities of living creatures. Think about that for a second. That doesn't sound evil or bad at all, and yet they made it a point to infiltrate his lab, capture him, and secure his secret substance. If it's a counter that implies the opposite, meaning Animexia weakens living creatures. We'll go more in detail on this thought process and what it all means, but let's continue and see what happens. They begin approaching, however Waifubot, protective as ever, attacks Red. Red is strong enough to defeat her, or so he thinks, as when he turns away, Waifubot grapples his arm. However, this fails too. This gives Pochi just enough time to steal Red's Demexia, as Pochi quickly summons their army with Red glaring confused. In the last part, we get a flashback to when Red himself was forcefully experimenting on their rainbow friends, to which we cut to the present, as the song says, "Am I losing myself?" Likely Red's realization that forcing people to turn to anything isn't a good thing, and his realization that he needs to stop Pochi before she makes the same mistake. Pochi, however, loads up their gun with Demexia, and turns Blue and the others into monsters to fight Red. They work together to incapacitate Red, smiling as they do it, before Pochi turns all of them into anime girls, Red included, much to his dismay. Pochi doesn't care for his crying though, as Pochi knows they'll be converted soon. As with all the others before him, it's only a matter of time before he loses his will and embraces it. Now that the Rainbow Friends arc is done, there are 2 more episodes I'm going to show you that are important to the lore and will give the main piece of evidence for the theory I've been alluding to since the start of the video. Then after that, we'll go into the Digital Circus arc with my theory in mind. Got it? Good. Let's go. Our next video shows Pochi telling Red how the Animexia works, as they are both scientists. A Smurf cat is seen on the desk as promptly grabbed in a chokehold before being force-fed the Animexia, shaken like a smoothie, and boom, anime. It's here that we see Red isn't as affected by the Animexia as the others. Unlike every other character that's been under his thrall, who becomes excited by the prospect of more anime girls in the harem, Red seems enraged by this. Now, here is easily the most important episode of the series, titled Twin Cat Space-Time Penetrator. In this episode, Pochi is building a portal. Red, seeing a moment of weakness, takes some of the Animexia and pours it onto the cake, which they offer to Pochi. Malice clearly evident in their face. However, right before Pochi can eat any, the portal works, blowing the cake back into Red's face. However, as it closes, it sucks in the cake with it, where it lands in the Amazing Digital Circus, teasing the next arc of the series. Now, before we move on to the Digital Circus arc, I'd like to present my theory. You see, notice how Red was trying to give Pochi Animexia? Why is that? After all, we know it wouldn't do anything, as established before. It doesn't transform humans. Not unless they return to something else, like a monster or a doll or something. Well, here's my answer to that. You see, Animexia is an addictive brainwashing substance, one that Pochi has been using to their advantage. Remember how multiple characters would be scared or confused or even horrified at first, but then later want it again and again or force others to try it too. Given that Animexia doesn't do anything to humans, Red would have no reason to try giving it to her. Not unless it did more than that. If it's addictive though, or made the brain more malleable, or like I determined earlier, made them weaker, that'd make sense of it. Sure, it wouldn't do anything to Pochi on the outside, but getting an addiction to her own concoction certainly wouldn't help them build their harem army. That would make it even harder, as Pochi would have to save some for herself constantly, wasting a portion of her supply on nothing, or even harder, keep herself away from it until they ride out the withdrawals and overcome it. And that's on top of it weakening her life force and her will. But if Animexia is an addictive brainwasher, and that's why the Rainbow Friends and all other characters seem happy after the fact, then why is Red not affected? Well, they are. They become an anime girl after all. However, I think they aren't affected by its brainwashing capabilities. Let me explain. You see, Demexia seems to be the opposite of Animexia. Whereas Demexia gives the user extreme power and makes them look scary, Animexia seems to make the user weaker and make them look cute. This is proven in the community tab post I mentioned earlier. Dr. Red was developing a substance that would enhance the physical abilities of living creatures to counter the Pochi Science laboratory. So Red was creating something specifically to counter what Pochi was doing to them. I believe that because Red took the Demexia first and then was injected by Animexia while under its influence, that shielded him from its brainwashing addictive properties. However, because the Rainbow Friends took Animexia first and then Demexia, they would still have an addiction. The Animexia shielded them from returning to their original sound minds because they already felt the high. Don't forget that each of these characters, when in their original forms, attacked Pochi. If the only thing stopping them from attacking Pochi was being turned into anime girls, then why didn't they attack her here? They're still under her thrall, and I think Red is aware of this. After all, he was ready for them, and given there were monitors in front of him, he clearly saw what was happening before they broke down his door. Pochi has been doing this from universe to universe, breaking into their homes to convert them into their army and their universe. Pochi is a tyrant, and she damn well knows what she's doing. She needs to make sure that even when it wears off and they return back to normal, they're still docile and crawling back for more. So once Red calmed down from crying, he knew he'd have to play along if he's ever to undo the damage that he'd done. Remember how at the end of the third part he had that realization? That's his endgame. He wants to defeat Pochi and return everyone to normal, but to do that he has to play the long game. That's why he keeps pretending to be under her thrall so they can trick her, such as with that cake. Red is the good guy here. So now that we have that theory out of the way, let's continue to the Digital Circus arc, where the cake has fallen into Kane's Digital Circus. As Gangle is sad about their comedy mask, Jax appears. Having found the cake from the last episode, he likely believes this is part of Kane's game, and so he has no hesitance in feeding it to his friends. When Gangle turns to an anime girl, he is surprised, and Gangle is beyond confused. We cut back to the lab, in which Red is nervous as they've been caught, seeing as the cake they were just trying to offer her was shown to be laced with Animexia, and so Pochi facepalms. Jax decides to keep going with this to see what happens, so they next go to Kinger, together. When he denies, he forces him to, which he doesn't seem to react the most sane to. However, this shows that even skin contact can transform you. Terrifying. Zooble is next. After helping her get put back together, Jax tries to get her to eat some, but she too refuses, which Jax again replies by forcing them to, which Zooble is not happy about. Ragatha is glitching out due to the abstracted Kaufmo, showing that this takes place during the pilot episode. However, unlike in the pilot, Jax is still there, and rather than letting Pomni help, he gives her the cake. At this rate, I'm starting to think that Jax's constant contact with the small traces of Animexia from the cake may be causing him to get a little obsessive about making these anime girls. However, Ragatha is happy as it seems to have stopped the abstraction. However, Kaufmo appears, as abstracted as ever. They run, however, Pochi arrives just in time for her chance at another monster to add to her collection. Shooting him with the Animexia, he is distressed, and the others look in disbelief and shock. Pochi turns around, intimidating Jax and demanding that he pull out the cake, which Jax, nervously yet giddily, complies with. It's then that Bubble notices the intruder. Sensing the danger, he comes in to attack, with Waifubot defending in turn. However, unable to resist food, Bubble licks up the cake and quickly becomes affected by the Animexia. Bubble spits it out too late, and Kane arrives upon sensing commotion. Back to the community tabs though, I want to highlight something very important here. Bubble, the resident AI of the Digital Circus, attacked the lab director, believing her to be an intruder. While attacking the lab director, Bubble found and consumed a cake and was forced to reconstitute itself under the influence of a drug. Notice the language here. Attacked the lab director, believing her to be an intruder. She was an intruder. Bubble found and consumed a cake. Bubble didn't find it. Jax had it out. It had it out because Pochi told him to. Bubble was forced to reconstitute himself under the influence of a drug. It didn't reconstitute itself. It was affected by the Animexia, and yet it's being worded like they could control whether they turn into an anime girl or not. On top of this, they call Animexia a drug, when it's clear that Pochi knows what it is. These community tabs are written by Pochi herself and are an unreliable narrator. Back at the lab, however, Red is frustrated and teary-eyed, and in their stress, they begin dancing? Blue and Screech are confused too, spying on him. Could this be a distraction? He did look around beforehand. Did Red see them and dance so that they'd think nothing was going on and he could go back to plotting? Maybe? I don't know, maybe he just likes to jam out when he's stressed. We return to the Digital Circus where Kane tries to defeat them by summoning objects on top of them. Pochi shoots a beam which Kane uses portals to reflect, which Waifubot reflects back. However, it accidentally hits Jax, which changes him and the others notice. Pomni even fainting. As Waifubot continues trying to fight Kane, Kane takes Pomni, afflicts them with Animexia, and then abstracts them to the ultimate fighter. Waifubot readies himself, transforming their arms into a sword and shield, and so they fight. Given Pomni's blank expression, it's safe to say that Pomni is gone. Kane has full control of her, thanks to both the Animexia and the abstraction taking hold of her. Pochi gets enough time to summon a portal back to the lab, not to escape, but to bring out the first person they ever converted. Seek. Seeing as they're in their monster form, this again confirms that Animexia can wear off, but so long as the addiction stays, so too will their servitude. Red is also here, though they clearly don't want to be, and Screech is here too, though still in their anime form. Last episode as writing this, Pomni continues on the offensive, stabbing their claws right through Seek's chest and out the other side. Placing a hand on Pomni's abstracted arm, he destroys the abstraction, turning Pomni to relatively normal. Kane yawns at this. When Waifubot tries to attack, he turns her into a depressed triangle. Seek tries to attack as well, but is turned into a mere blob. We cut to Pochi and Red. Pochi has a waist spin and is making Red dispose of the cake. While they're distracted, Kane tries to destroy the portal to trap them here, signified by Kane pulling out his name generator. However, Screech steps up, dropping a syringe of Animexia. They appear behind Kane, now a monster, and ready to strike. And leaving us with a cliffhanger. And so that's everything from the Pochi Science lore so far. From what we have right now, it's clear Pochi is beyond suspicious, given they're accessing multiple universes and going everywhere they can to amass a hostile entity army into their anime workforce. But what do you think? Do you think Pochi is the bad guy? Do you think Red will ever succeed? And more importantly, what do you think about my theory? Thanks for watching, and remember, don't eat the cake. I know it looks tasty, but don't eat it, alright? It's bad for your health, and you'll turn into an anime girl with a crippling addiction, alright? But yeah, like and subscribe if you liked it, and see you around. Peace!